Hello, Felicity. How are you? Norman?
Hi, how are you?
And I'll let you go through your chairs. And so, Peter, would you like to go and have a seat with the panel while we go through this next part of today's festivities? So obviously we've got some cricket legends who have just arrived. Doug Walters, Jeff Thomson, accompanied by Norman Kochannek, who is going to run a Q&A. So let's talk about the profiles of these particular cricketers. So you might have heard some things about Peter Dawkins as the Vice Chancellor, but you possibly didn't know these things about him as the cricketer. So Peter has always been the captain, surprise, surprise. The captain of his school team in the UK, captain of his university team in Loughborough University, captain of Murdoch University team where he was a staff member, and captain, it needs to come back. Go back.
I'm so glad you're reading this out. Felicity, I have my mobile phone ready to read it off. You're doing a good job.
So he was captain of the Notts Forest Cricket Club that went on to win the Champion of Champions trophy in the Gun and Moore Alliance Cup, and I think that was at Lord's, Peter? Trent Bridge, there you go. Fun fact, he once played against Imran Khan, who was at the time playing for Royal Grammar School Worcester team, and sometimes coach. He was an advanced cricket coach, registered with the National Cricket Association in the UK, working with high potential county cricketers, and one such player was Peter Such, who went on to play international cricket for England. And because we're introducing our cricketers to this panel, next slide, yep, thanks Annie. We wanted to get some video footage, but the only video footage we could get of Peter was of him being a Vice Chancellor. We couldn't get any cricket footage.
Are you saying that Fox still wouldn't release the
They
coverage?
wouldn't,
I understand.
it was, so expensive that it was prohibitive. So this is footage of Peter being Vice Chancellor. And there's that information again, so I won't read it again for you. Okay, and of course we have Jeff Thomson, considered one of the fastest bowlers ever, terrified many batsmen, bowled the fourth fastest ball ever at 160.6 kilometres per hour, inducted into the Australian Cricket Hall of Fame. So 51 test matches, 50 ODIs, 187 first class matches, and 88 list A. And look at those wickets.
Can I just say something? Nobody ever puts up World Series cricket, Kerry Baker.
Oh, right. Well, that's an oversight,
It
isn't it?
really annoys me.
Yes, I can
I'm not
understand
blaming you, but everybody.
Yeah, so it's where the information is readily available.
Didn't
Note
you
to
bowl
self.
175 Ks doing World Series?
It was his fourth fastest.
Okay, move next.
I think John's got a valid point. What did you say, Don? He's wondering whether you actually did play World Series cricket.
And so here we have some action of, or some footage of Jeff in action. Hair flying. I won't say how old I was when I was watching this, but I can remember being quite...
That was Dougie Catching.
Ooh, that was a
That was pretty, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I enjoyed that ball.
I can't remember.
And move on. Yep.
Sure, Tony Greg.
Next one. And of course we have Doug Walters. And Doug Walters was a right-hand bat for Australia and New South Wales. First player ever to score a century and a double century in the same test match. And I think the powerful memory for me was the century in a session in WA with a six off the last ball to bring it up. Pretty powerful stuff. 74 tests, test matches, 28 ODIs, 258 first class matches, and 49 List A games, with impressive stats, not just with the bat but with the ball as well. I think your highest haul was a sixer in some games somewhere. Right. I'll leave.
They were unlucky.
I'll leave Norman to continue, and over to you.
Thank you, Felicity. Actually, there's an important document that I think one of my lawyers has brought up, so thank you very much. I have to read this to start with, it's extremely important. Bear with me. I, Norman William Bernard Kochannek, take no responsibilities whatsoever what Jeffrey Robert Thomson and Messrs. Kevin Douglas Walters will say in this session. There might be some politically incorrect matters that I personally will take absolutely no responsibility. Make that clear up. Any legal matters that may occur, directed straight to their family. In fact, their partners, their wives will take care of it, I'm sure, as they take care of most things. So thank you for that. Aparna saying thank you for that legal. I'm glad you brought up. I almost forgot about it. So again, I take absolutely no responsibilities. Put that down. All right. Now, to the fun stuff. Now, we've got a lovely man here, Professor Peter Dawkins. I actually thought you were John Dawkins at one stage. I was going to talk about ministerial work, but I can't talk about that. So you're honoured by Felicity giving you amazing facts about your cricket prowesses. What we'd love to do, maybe like even bowl with Jeff and Doug, I'm not sure. You're an off spinner, weren't you?
I was an off spinner, yeah. And a batsman, but a bit of an all-rounder.
Really?
But when these guys were playing, I was in England and came to Australia in 1984, and I became an Australian supporter by about 1987, 88. I was barracking for the Aussies, should be pleased to know, no longer the Poms, but Doug Walters was, despite the fact I was a Pom, was a hero of mine, so it's marvellous to meet you. And Jeff Thomson was, in many ways, the most amazing fast bowler I've ever seen. Of course, there was a guy bowling down the other end that got quite a lot of credit.
That was his name.
Yeah. But what a combination! I mean, and of course, at that time I was barracking for the Poms, but it was like lambs to the slaughter in that series where you were knocking over. I think Keith Fletcher was one there, and Luckhurst. He used to walk out to square leg, I think.
Oh yeah, he was a bit worried.
And Greggy, you got with the Yorker there, but the way that ball came out from nowhere and was up around your ears, you know, within that, it was astonishing stuff. So fantastic to see. But anyway, these are guys are going to do the talking, I think.
No, but you're the centre of attention. You are the man who's.
Well, we didn't play again because we used to do tour matches. So you weren't involved with any of those. No.
No. So look, I played club cricket at probably the highest level of club cricket. I never played county cricket, but I did coach at Nottinghamshire with some of the youngsters who went on and played county cricket at Trowbridge.
That would have been around when Nottingham used to win the soccer as well, right?
Not Forest. Yeah,
Forest.
Yeah, that's right. No, they were a champion football team as well.
Yeah.
But Derek Randall was one of my friends in Nottinghamshire. He's a bit of a character.
Oh.
And played a few good knocks, including in that
Centenary test.
Test.
Yeah.
And he used to come and help when I was coaching kids. He'd come and join in a fair bit.
Pete, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Just quickly, I just want to know: are you calling yourself English or Australian now? That's the question I've got for you.
I'm Australian now.
How old were you in 84 we came in?
I turned 30 in 84. Yeah.
Okay.
So did you play cricket here?
Yeah, I played in South Australia so once I came here, I lived in Glenelg, and I actually had a winter playing in the nets with Glenelg, and Andrew Hilditch was the team captain at the time. But the university, Glenn's University, where I was an academic, asked me if I would play for them because their top team was only in C grade, so that's what I played in the South Australian Cricket Association, and helped them with their, the university players, and really enjoyed playing because in club cricket in England is all limited overs cricket, of course, and in Australia, the 2-day games, although off spinners probably aren't as big a thing, in Australia. Well, you've had one or two good ones, of course.
Mhm.
But it meant that I bowled a lot more overs here in the 2-day games than in the Winter Overs cricket back in England. And then I went to Murdoch and played over there, was captain of their university team, and that was good because the Fremantle doctor used to come in from fine leg and I could get it to drift towards the steps. I used to bowl a lot of overs. Into the Fremantle doctor. Yeah.
Right.
All you needed to do was be curator over there in South Australia. You could have followed Nathan Lyon, off spinner
Yes.
thing, and they, if you died
Yeah,
on the
well,
spot, you never know what could happen. You could have been the precursor to Nathan Lyon. All right, thanks for that. It was very interesting to hear your
Right.
history. And I think Jeff and Doug have got a few things to share as well. Just a quick question. I spent some time with Neil Harvey, though, of course, a legend as he is, and he made a point of me asking Jeff a first question. So this is actually from Neil Harvey. His question was, who do you think the fastest bowler in the world was or is? Was it A, Jeff Thomson, B, Shoaib Akhtar, C, Neil Harvey off a long run-up, that was his words, or D, Norman Kochannek off a long run-up? I think the answer's pretty obvious, but let's hear it from you, Jeff.
From me, it's a bit hard to strum your own guitar, isn't it? But I mean, Shoaib, when he was a young bloke, did come to my house. He used to ask me. He was actually one of the only fast bowlers that actually asked questions. And yeah, I've got photos of him sitting on my front steps and everything like that. I mean, he was fair dinkum. He was sharp in little bursts. He didn't have much stamina, the old Shoaib. I mean, most fast bowlers don't mind a party or whatever, but man, he was short. But we did have one that was shorter than him, and that was that Sean Tate. He had less stamina than Shoaib Akhtar. Shoaib could bowl 6 overs, Sean Tate could bowl about 2. But,
In 2 different spells.
but Shoaib, I saw Shoaib bowl pretty quick sometimes, you know, and I was actually, it's funny how you get found out, isn't it? When you stretch the truth. I was commentating in Lahore, and Pakistan were playing New Zealand, and I'm commentating away there, and I said to the director, I said, how come we got a couple of speaker cameras? He said, oh, the one down there is Shoaib's own one, that's the Pakistan. And it was, I'm not saying that because I'm the, supposed to be the quickest. But it was 10 or 12 k's faster than our one anyway. So they put that one up, and the engineers come up and said, don't even worry about that, Tom. It's not even close to the mark. But it's funny how you get hooked. So I don't know. It's a matter of opinion.
Well, I think the opinion's pretty clear. I think A, Jeff Thomson by far was the fastest bowler in the world. On all accounts, some deliveries were well above the 160 mark that were never clocked. The one famous delivery, what was it? You actually bowled a bouncer on the side screen, is that right?
I've done that a fair few times. Well, half a dozen times.
I tell you, let me answer the question.
Yeah.
You answered, Doug. You answered.
I mean, there hasn't been a West Indian or even Brett Lee mentioned there, Tomo.
No, he was sharp. Yeah.
I would have thought that come from Len Pascoe, that question, not Neil Harvey, but
Yeah, that's right.
that's a sort of question he likes to bait Tomo with. But Tomo was the quickest, and he bowled quicker at us being New South Wales, and he did against your Pommy side. And I always asked him why he bowled quicker at us than he did. And he said, "You blokes wouldn't pick me." So I said, "I was never a selector." And he probably actually bowled quicker with me than anyone else. But yeah, I got no doubt who was the quickest. He's sitting right over there now. And I don't think we'll see a faster bowler.
It was a bit of fun, but I used to bowl quick at him because I wanted to get him out. I don't want to stay watching him belting us around all day. It's quite funny, isn't it? You sit here, Dougie and I are really good mates. We're not that much different in age, I suppose, but I don't get autographs. We've given out 1 million in our time. The only autograph I ever got off a cricketer, and I was with my mother at Myers or Grace Brothers or something back in the day at Parramatta, and he was up on stage, and I got his bloody autograph, Doug Walters. I've got nobody else's. Isn't that funny how it turns out?
Yeah.
Now, Doug, we
He
should
sort of had the autograph on my forehead when he was
Doug, we need to hear a bit about yourself. Now, you're famous for your card playing, a few other activities during the match. Just tell us a bit about those days and how that went.
Well, I'm the type of guy that doesn't worry about things until you're actually confronted with them. And I think a lot of batsmen are out before they even get out there on many occasions. Some of those guys you were talking about facing Jeff Thomson were certainly out before they walked onto the field. I played cards or had done crossword puzzles when I was sitting next in the bat. But I always sat in a place where I could see what was happening out in the middle. I didn't have my back turned to the game, or I wasn't out in the back room. I saw every ball bowled, but just a glance. And I knew what was happening out there, but as I say, I didn't worry about it until I walked through that gate. Then it was up to me to do the rest. But that was, yeah, I guess I still have that attitude in life. And I enjoy life, and nothing changed in my cricketing career from one day to the next. I mean, if I went out on the town and had a few beers the night before a game, I'd do it the first night of the game, the second night of the game, every day of the game. So nothing changed, really. But I had to change. I was in New Zealand and we were playing crib, and we're in Dunedin, and we're sitting in the cow sheds. The dressing rooms were in the barn. They had sawdust all over the field. It was even colder than it is outside here today, freezing cold. And we'd lost 2 weeks. I'm not normally playing cards when I'm next in the back, padded up. But when we lose 2 wickets and 2 balls, and I've just been dealt this hand, which I'm going for the most you can get in a hand if I cut the right. And the second wicket fell, and I couldn't help myself. I picked up the card. I ended up with 29, but I said, don't move until I come back. I want to finish this hand. Well, I went out and I blocked the first ball because I was on a hat trick, and hit the next one straight up in the air and come back. And I cut the 5 of the jack I had in my hand.
So are you saying you actually deliberately got out? Is that what you're implying?
Well, it was too cold to bat.
Actually,
It must have been too cold for me to bat in England.
well, actually, these two guys, I picked them up and met them this morning. All they could talk about is how cold Sydney is, which I mean, typical Queenslander coming out with that comment.
Well, it's been hot and buggy up there, 35 degrees. I mean, you know, come down there. I expected it to be warm, but it was cool. Yeah.
All right, another question quickly for both of them. In terms of the relationship to India, of course, we've got an India versus Australia series happening as we speak, and I was very curious to ask them about their involvement with India. They either like playing in the country or against India. Tell us your experiences first, Jeff.
I never played in India, so it was weird when I got back in those days. I finished in '85, so that's really strange. But there was only one tour, I think, in that time when I started, whatever it was, 71 to 85. Really weird, eh? And so I missed that. I don't know why. And then Pakistan, I went there once as well. I know you shouldn't mention India with Pakistan in the same breath.
I take no responsibility.
Yeah, but he's been mates with Imran, and so yes. So there wasn't much happening there, and I played them here a few times. My first ever international game, this is quite funny, was I was playing at Bankstown out here in the western suburbs when I was a kid, and this guy came up to me from North Shore somewhere. You know, when you're in North Shore, you never go to Bankstown unless you want to get belted up or something like that. And we only went to the North Shore to steal stuff. Anyway, he came around and he said, "I'd like you to play on our team." I'd never seen this bloke before. I was playing first grade in Sydney, and I'm doing pretty well. And I said, "Who are you?" I was going to school, high school at the time, at Punchbowl, and he said, "I'm with the Australian Schoolboys cricket team." I said, "Who are they?" He said, "Australian Schoolboy." I said, "Well, who's in your team?" And he said a few blokes, but I knew a couple, that's all. And I said, "Why you want me?" He said, "Oh, I think you'd be really good on our side." I said, "Who are you playing?" They were playing India. He said, "Right." So we had to go down, is it Cranbrook below Bellevue Hill, where Kerry Packer lived, and Nathan Murdoch below them there, and yeah, so we played India, schoolboys. I put 3 of them in hospital first. That was my best mates after that. They used to come to everything we went, and they were all hanging around me. You know, but that was my first introduction to international and India, yeah. And it's funny, I played a couple of them later on in real cricket, you know, I say real cricket, like in top of the Wazza, you know, Australia versus India. And I think one of them might have been Jimmy Arminer, might have been in that.
Jimmy Arminer.
Yeah, he could really play, that guy. So that was my lack of involvement, I suppose, with India. Sonny played in my time, Sonny Gavaskar, and he was, people say to me, you know, they ask about good batsmen, and he was a really good batsman. He got, first time I played him, I think he got 300s in that series. We won, but he managed to get 300s throughout, and he got runs against the West Indies as well, and Michael and all the top fast bowlers Sonny managed. So not too many of the other guys wanted to know about it at that time, you know, you can imagine. And Sonny's always been a mate, you know. But it was really interesting. And then to go to India and coach, I've been there, I've only just finished a while ago, but I was there doing Mumbai, Kerala and Bangalore. So we used to look for fast bowlers. We started our own academy. It was IDBI life insurance or something. Yeah. And Frank Tyson was there before me. I don't know if you ever met Frank in your travels. No, you met Ray Lynn. No, you met.
I met Harold Larwood.
Harold Larwood, that was it. Yeah. He used to live here.
Yeah,
He passed away. He actually kicks it.
No, he came because he was from Nottinghamshire, and in fact Bill Bose, who bowled left arm the other end, were fantastic, double act of course, and they came from mining villages in Nottinghamshire, and when my club won the so-called Champion of Champions in Nottingham, he was on visiting from Australia and came to the grand final and gave the trophy that we won. But of course he got to be very controversial because of the bodyline series.
Yeah, he was a lovely guy, Harold Larwood.
Yeah.
I got to know him quite well. And he was blind for a few years before he died, totally blind. And we would go out to his house there at Randwick for his birthday every year. And it may have been the same 8 or 10 people that went, but he knew everyone by name, exactly where you were sitting, and he did not miss a beat. He was a terrific guy. And yeah.
He was only little, Freddie, wasn't he?
Oh,
I
very small.
remember meeting him, and he was a little guy.
He may have challenged you in that fast
For-
bowling
for
stage.
speed.
Oh, really?
Everyone forgets, you know, that these older guys bowl quick as well.
Tell us your
Richie
experience.
Beno rated Frank Tyson
Yeah.
as his fastest.
Right.
So,
Well, did you not get along with Richie Beno, or was that something? Or?
No. Richie got me to commentate with him, and that he was the one that got me originally with Channel 9. But I just got bored with sitting with, excuse the word, all the bullshit they carry on there. I said, this is not my go. I've played enough cricket. I don't want to sit here watching these blokes play.
but I had one tour of India, 1969. The Nawab of Patori was the captain of India in that series, and actually it was up until just recently, not that long ago, that we were the last side to have beaten India in India on that tour in 1969.
How did you go? What did you get in that series? How did you go?
I've done okay. But the wickets were a real spinning tops. I remember.
No surprise there.
I remember in Delhi, Bill Lorry had one look at the wicket and said, we used to do a bit of fishing in our days off over there in the creeks and the dams and whatever. And Bill Lorry had one look at the wicket and said, we'll be fishing for 2 days here. Well, he was wrong. We were fishing for 3 days. We lost the toss and didn't last very long, I can tell you. Bishan Beatty and Prasanna were the two main bowlers, but they had a couple of others pretty handy spinners as well. But I always had more problems with left arm orthodox than your type, Peter. Derek Underwood, I claim is the best bowler I've faced. Bishan Beatty. And before that, they had a fellow by the name of Bapu Nadkarni had played for India. And Brian Booth said to me one day he was the meanest bowler that's ever bowled a cricket ball. He never gave you a thing. In fact, he holds a record, doesn't he, for some ridiculous amount of maiden overs in a row, something like 29 maidens. And he would bowl with extraordinary figures. He would bowl 60 overs in a test match and end up with 2 for 40. Something like that.
Yeah. More overs than runs. Good, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Doug, I have to quickly talk about your ability to score a century in a session, which is on numerous occasions. In the modern day of cricket, you've got a lot of batsmen that go out there with bigger bats, I would argue smaller boundaries, and do that quite regularly. But in your day, it was exceptional. Tell us about that.
Well, you get lucky some days.
Oh, come on.
We're lucky some days, but that was the way I played cricket. I mean, I like to hit the ball. I see the ball, hit the ball. Excuse me. And I guess that one that we were talking about there in Perth earlier, it's on the television now, but I didn't give fast bowlers a lot of credit. But on that day I did. I aimed at the middle of the bat and hit it more often. So, yeah, and Perth is it used to be the style of wicket that once you got in, the bounce was so even. It was like batting on just pure concrete, where I learned to play my cricket. So the bounces were exactly the same. So yeah.
Run us through that last over when you basically hit the winning, or hit your century off literally the last ball.
Well, it was funny because Greg Chappell had just got out just before tea. And normally when two people cross, there's only good luck and bad luck words exchanged. But on this occasion, Greg got out and he said, I got out so you get 100 in the last session. And I didn't even say bad luck. I walked up to him at tea, a couple of minutes later I was 3 not out. And said, what do you mean you got out so I get 100 in the last session? You wouldn't get out to give your mother a hit. Bet you wouldn't. And he said, well, we need some quick runs. He said, you're the man. So you wouldn't want to know. The drinks. Ross Edwards has come in. And at drinks, I was 68, I think. And after drinks, I never faced the ball for 27 minutes.
Oh.
Ross Edwards was an accountant. He was an accountant. He could count from 1 to 8, I know that. With 8 ball overs in those days. The three overs plus the drinking session, he took a single off the last ball of the over. And he done the same when I'm on 93, the last over coming up. I'm still down the other end. So we stole a leg by. The first ball that Willis bowled. And Willis had been averaging 4 or 5 short ones and over. And the first one he bowled me was a short one, and I went to hook it And I got the top edge, and I went straight over Alan Knotton's head. A couple of bounces into the side screen, not very convincing, but still full. So I'm on 97. I know he's going to give me at least another 2 or 3 before the over's finished, particularly after that shot. He's got 2 guys behind square on the fence, but he didn't bowl me another one until the last ball. I was on the back foot waiting every ball, but he kept on throwing them up. And I knew that fast bowlers can't help themselves. So the last one, and I don't know why I hit it that way. It would have been far easier to clip it over the top instead over the slips for 6. But somehow it got round there and over the fence. So that was okay. I knew it was the last ball. I went off the ground, and the boys were all hiding in the dressing room at the ablution block. I had to go past the fridge on my way to my locker, so I took a couple of bottles of Swan Lager out of the fridge.
As you do.
And I had the opener, because they're not twist tops in those days. So I'm there, I'm unbuckling my pads, and Ian Chappell walks out of the ablution block, accusing me about getting out off the last ball of the over. I said, yeah, good joke, Ian. I said, you're going to take the tops off those 2 bottles, or am I? He said, no, he said, we needed small runs tomorrow. He said, you shouldn't have got out. I said, well, you taking the tops off? He said, no, I'm fair income. He said, we wouldn't. I took the tops off the bottles. And I've actually got pretty good hearing because they all run out of the So the next day, I'm out second ball that I faced. And Ross Edwards played out of maiden. The first ball from Willis the next morning was pretty quick. I played and missed. And he said, for Christ's sake, Dougie, nick it. The second ball was there. And I nicked it the second slip and said, good morning, Bobby, and off I walked. I get into the dressing room and I said, oh, surprise, you're all here this morning. I walked up to William Chappell. I said, you don't put off till tomorrow what you can do yesterday.
But this guy has also got a century in a session, in every session, like first session, middle session, last session. Is that correct?
Wow.
Yeah, I got 1 century in a session. It was against the rest of the world in Melbourne. And there was a day after Sir Garfield Sobers got 253, and Sir Donald Bradman wrote in the paper and said, was quoted in the paper saying, was the best innings ever played. And I got 100 in the first session the next morning, and not even my teammates knew I got 100.
Very attentive team, isn't it? I never watched you play your shots. Okay, now, quick thing as well, both, the most interesting thing for me is they both played together, and the friendship is amazing. Hearing it on the phone, talking to each other, is like the best of mates, and that whole mateship to me is very important. Your era, and Neil Harvey told me this as well, your team did not change, did they? For a number of years you had the same nucleus of the team, and that really, to me, is important. A lot of cricketing nations these days chop and change every game. There's no consistency. I think the success of your era was exactly that. Tell us more about that.
Well, pretty much. I mean, we played in an era where it's quite different to what is going on these days. In fact, our era was not unlike the last 8 months around the world in COVID situations where we were sort of confined to our mates all the time. And I think it's been proved, certainly in football out here this winter, that the sides are really played together as a team, more so than they have for a long time. And I think it's certainly helped cricket teams around the world. Whereas the only things that the modern day cricketer does with his mates is go shopping with their wives and kids. I mean, they don't know what a bar is for. They don't know what a golf course is for. So they don't do things outside the ordinary. And this last 6 or 8 months, they've actually got to know their teammates, and I think performed a lot better.
What about, just excuse me, talking about length of time together, what was your first tour of England? How long did that go for?
1968 was my first tour of England, and that was the first time they actually flew both directions. And the tour was 3 days short of 7 months. So the guys go crooks about being away from home for, well, on a tour of England now, it's only a couple of months at most. I mean, we played every county side once and the top half twice.
And you wouldn't have played one day, isn't it?
So I would
No,
have seen you play.
not in 1968 there were 1 days, but 72.
I probably got your autograph. So I would have seen you play in 68. I was 14. And, well, yeah, it was 14. Did you play at Southampton? Did you play Hampshire? We would have played Hampshire.
We played Hampshire,
That
we
was
played.
my hometown.
Not sure whether they were in the top
And,
half. We might have played them twice.
probably got your autograph. First series I remember in England from Australia was 1961, and Richie Benaud was the captain. And I've got a photo. I was about this high. I remember about 7 years old, and Richie Benaud walked out, and Bill Laurie was in the team. He was standing next. I've got a photograph that I took, and they seemed very tall to me when I was in that row, and that was an amazing team actually. 1961 and the famous Ridge Test match at Lord's.
Oh, absolutely. And those ridges were still there in 1972.
So who won that series then you're talking about?
68?
61.
Not us, I don't think.
All right, we're going to let
Rain saved us on about two games. We got knocked over in the second test at Lord's for 78. That was 1968. We got knocked over.
Jackie, can I ask
Okay.
about that? I read a lot about this, that you guys were might have had a few celebrations the night before. Is that true?
Well, I was 27, not out. But I didn't go to Bob Gray's wedding. I was the only one on the team that didn't, because my wife actually arrived in England that day before.
You went shopping.
But the rest were all celebrating a journalist by the name of Bob Gray, who wrote for the Sydney Mirror here years ago. He got married the day before. They all celebrated, but I don't think it was just the celebration. I don't know whether you saw the wicket in New Zealand, this last Test match against the West Indies. It was pretty hard to determine the wicket from the outfield.
Yes.
And Lord's was a little bit like that in 1968. It had rained quite a lot. England had actually batted first and got 300 and something before it rained. And of course the wickets were uncovered in those days. They just covered the bowlers' run-ups and left the wicket open. So the wicket was quite damp. And it actually hailed out the Test match.
Hailed out?
And those ridges that we were talking about were the only two dry parts. The whole ground was covered in hail, white, apart from those two sections on each end of it.
I might just quickly step in here. I think this is a fantastic session now. Felicity's there wanting to do something as well, I can see. Just quickly, I wanted to allow 2 people to ask questions and one last one from Ben, and we'll finish up. If that's okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Let's have a hand up. Anyone from towards the back want to ask a question at all? Any pertinent question you'd love to ask? No? Anyone want to ask? Rupesh.
So Doug, Jeff, what do you think about just changes, in the modern game, in the rules, power plays? Do you think it's better for the cricket, one day in 2020 compared to time?
I personally don't think the players know what power play is all about. So why do we need power play? Why do we have to change the rules? I don't know. I mean, the fact that we have replacement issues these days is somehow didn't knock them out so they can get someone else to
It's okay in 2020 to pull whatever. I think where it's Mickey Mouse cricket anyway. And as far as I'm concerned, I think they should have 10 good fielders out there. So if I bowl my 4 overs, or even if I bowl 2 overs and have a rest, get me off. I'm your gun bowler. Get some lunatic fieldsman out there that dives everywhere. You may as well make it all Mickey Mouse, What does that matter? And have really good fielders, so everything's really tricked up, if you know what I mean. So why not do that? But in the normal game, well, I've always argued not argued, but always was disappointed that the umpires have lost all their power really to the TV and the replayers and all this. I mean, they're basically useless in a fashion. And they used to tell us when you bowled short enough and all that time, stop bowling, you know, or something like that. They ran the game. But now these guys have everything on, like helmets and everything like that, and you can't bowl short at them. You know what I'm saying? The pitches are as flat as buggery, the balls are terrible, and the fast bowler can only bowl one or two, I don't even know what it is,
It's
short
not
balls
really
at
fair
you.
for the bowlers.
You know, so what else can you do if it's as flat as anything, you know what I mean? What I'm saying is they're armoured up to cop fast bowling, and they're not allowed to bowl it, which is crazy.
One more question. Come on, there must be a burning. The young gentleman here, I think you've been looking quite. No questions? Have they? Come on. Ask a question.
You know, talking about Doug Walters, everyone knows the love for the beer. I think one of your mates was the culprit for you reaching at the ground a little later than the usual time you were there. What was that incident?
Well,
The shorter version.
I guess
The longer version, I'm sure.
we all had to have jobs in those days. It wasn't only my love of beer, I worked for a cigarette company as well. And whilst I didn't smoke when I joined them, and I haven't smoked incidentally for nearly 12 years, it will be in March next year, 12 years, so I'm over that habit, but I still have the odd beer. But my roommate, that's what roommates were for, Terry Kenner, he didn't wake me up. He went shopping. And he rang me from the ground at 5 to 11. And he said, "Where are you?" I said, "You know where I am." I said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm at the ground where you should be." Well, I looked at my watch, it's 5 to 11. So he said, "I'd hurry up if I was you." The captain's not very happy. Ian Chappell was the captain, we're out in the field. And by the time I got there, I'd missed 3 overs. And
Pretty good time.
John Benno, Richie's brother, was 12th man in that game, and he was out there substituting for me. And I'm down the gate. "Hey guys, I'm here." And the captain's obviously told him, if he appears, just ignore him, don't let him in. I missed 4 overs. "I'm here guys, I'm here." 5 overs, I think stuff that we're going to field with 12, so I run on. And John Benno eventually come off, and I went into his position there a bit off, and I hear this voice saying, "Hey you, down there." He's pointing to third man. So, third man, I come in the middle. "Hey you, down there." Fine leg. So for the next hour, I've gone from third man to fine leg to third man, and I'm getting a bit sick of this. 'Cause there was a kid that had ridden his bike, and he left it parked right in the corner where I was fielding there at third man. I said, "Excuse me, sonny, do you mind if I borrow your bike?" I need to give the captain a hint. He said, "Go for it, man." I pedalled his bike around the wicket, didn't go across. And the captain never got the hint. For the next 25 minutes until lunch, I still had to do the other 3 backwards and forwards. I think the kid giving me his bike back.
Well, look, thanks everyone. We're concerned about time, but we've got a fair bit of wrapping up to do. Unfortunately, I'm going to stop it there. Quite frankly, as you can see, we're going to talk for the next 10 hours. There's so much incredible content and lovely stories of these gentlemen, and we thank Peter, your day today, being farewell, gave us the opportunity to come here today. Look, a round of applause for everyone.
Thank you so much, Norman. It was a beautifully curated panel, thank you. And Norman is, of course, a correspondent for ADP at the moment for the current Test series. So
With the partner, Sony, back there as well. She's become very popular.
so that's fantastic. We'd now like to provide you with an opportunity with Rupesh to just duck into a comfortable room around the corner, have a little bit of a chin wag, and then come back in sort of 15 minutes or so for some lunch.
So, Felicity, I just wanted to acknowledge Norman. So, Norman became a good friend of mine. And the first time I met him was Sachin Tendulkar auction. So you know the masterpiece and his personal bag. That's Norman.
I was the auctioneer of the bag.
Auction. Because Peter and I have this, Peter met Sachin Tendulkar in India, he was invited, and he has a picture, and he was showing it, and I couldn't stop myself, I had to show that personal bag.
Well, Sachin Tendulkar signed that in front of us.
Yeah.
The most magnificent shot of him walking down the stairs on his last batting performance. A truly special piece. A one-off, of course, as well, which makes that very special.
And Norman is always, you know, I follow him, and he's always interested in cricket. And I met him actually on 6th on 2020 cricket.
Right.
So heavily involved, and thank you so much, Norman. I mean, this and Peter has been an amazing Vice Chancellor for us, 10 years, transformed the university, and we were thinking what to do for Peter, and so thanks to you, Norma, you brought 2 legends, and you know, that's been amazing. Thank you, Jeff.
It's been fantastic, guys. Thank you very much. See you at lunchtime.
Yes.
Thank you.
You too.
Me too.
Yeah, you too. You get to have a bit of a chin wet.
No, I shouldn't be saying this, but watch too family. He knows what's happening.
So we've got 15 minutes or so while they're having a chin wag. There are drinks coming around. Help yourself. And lunch will be served in about, starting to be served in about 15 minutes. Then we've just got one more presentation where we'll give gifts to Peter and give him a sort of